Hey guys, hey, it's me again, showing up to talk to you, showing up to have a conversation. Before we start, let me just play a message from our sponsor.
You are listening to the Message Talk Show and Podcast. Do you believe you have something to share? Do you believe you have something to contribute? Do you have a story to tell the world, to share with your community? Gandhi said, man often becomes what he believes himself to be. If you think you can, you can. If you think you can't, you can't. So join us on the Message Talk Show and Podcast with host Alex Gordon.
All right, so today we're showing up with Mr. Orville Plummer, all the way from the other side of London. Say hi, Orville.
Hi everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you today.
Yeah, go on.
Yes, I've known Alex for years, and this is the first
Man,
time
man,
I'm in this
don't go
studio.
back in the history now, man. You're going to shame me now, man. You're going to embarrass me now. Yes, we've over about 20 years now, yeah?
That's 20 years. Remember Men of Vision?
Hey, man, no, man. Now you're preaching, man. Now you're beginning to preach, man. Men of Vision, yes, that was something we started so many years ago. Wow, we've been on a trek here, haven't we?
That's right. It's good to see you in this frame and yeah, prospering and doing something different.
Well, you've got to keep trying to do something different, you know. So we're joining our fans out there today to talk about what's going on in our society, what's going on in our world, what's happened. We've seen Corona, it's hit us. And in the midst of this, businesses are affected drastically. So from your perspective, Orville, what's been happening from your side? Well, okay, first tell us what you do, Orville. Tell us what you do.
Let's start that way. So I'm a chartered accountant, and I have business consultancy, which just looks after financial controllership for business and finance directorship for business. And the ideal is to have a portfolio of business that we do finance directorship roles every month, every quarter. We tell people how their performance are doing and help them to grow, evolve, and grow.
Wow. So that's great when things are good. And you can report that, yes, things are going good. We're growing. We're making money. We can pay your bill. So what happens when a crisis like this hits?
When a crisis like this hits, you imagine one morning you wake up and then your income is slashed to zero or not zero. And you start wondering, how do I pay my bills? What do I do? And as an entrepreneur, you start worrying because you're used to looking after yourself and going out there and hustling, and that can't happen in these environments unless you're in something like the food industry. Then the government step in and see if they can try and help you. But as far as I can tell, while they say they'll help,
my God,
access to that is just not there.
Man, if I remember the things from accounting days, once the government steps in, there is so much paperwork for everything, and I'm sure you've seen the evidence of this. Am I right?
Yes. So the paperwork starts. I mean, the journey is before you had to. There was nothing for self-employed. Then there is something for self-employed. Then there's business interruption loan, and before you get one of those, you have to prove that you can't get the normal loan. And now they've gone past that, and
before we go down that route, then shouldn't businesses have been prepared for some sort of crisis in their business life?
This is not a crisis. This is a catastrophe. This is huge.
This is a catastrophe. This is totally beyond anything we've ever seen in our lifetime.
That's right. This is not anything you could contingency plan for. You could plan, I don't know, 3 months. But this thing is going to be around for 12 months.
You reckon? That's what you're foreseeing at the moment?
Yeah.
About 12 months.
It'll be around for a while. While the virus finishes and so on, probably 8 months' time. But to come out of this, it'd be a long time.
It'll be a long time, but it's a long run.
It's not easy. And to pick this up, yeah. There are places where dependent on tourism, tourism gone off, then all your income had dropped.
Well,
Yeah, this is going to be a huge impact.
well, just by the pictures they've been showing of the planes not even moving, you see whole airports, you see the planes in the just parked on in the parks, and there's no one inside the airports. So you're thinking, my God, we've never seen anything like this ever. And while those planes are sitting there, the costs are still mounting up.
Yes. I know you're a biblical man. Imagine people saying, we haven't seen God, so sometimes we can't believe in it. You haven't seen Corona, but its impact is tremendous.
Well, we're feeling it. We're feeling it more than ever.
Yeah.
We're feeling it more than ever because, what we've also experienced around us is a number of friends and family members, both elderly and middle-aged people, who've passed away, as a result. And our hearts go out to the public. Our hearts go out to the families who are grieving at the moment. And sometimes it's even very difficult to grieve because you can't even attend the funerals in the way that you want to attend and pass them on to the next side. So it's as you said, it's just unbelievable. It's unbelievable what we're going through right now. Yeah, but in the midst of the storm, we need to hold each other's hands to get through this.
Yes, there's going to be opportunities and some sort of positivity. If you were weak before, then even as a company, then your dangers are really there, because if you didn't have good cash flow, then you probably won't survive this. But if you had good financial management before, then you'll be all right. You should be all right.
You should be all right.
You should be all right.
But then you see, in times like this, what tends to then happen, because businesses aren't functioning 100%, it means the cash flow, it dries up, because once the chains stop from the bigger guys, the whole cash flow chain stops from the bigger companies all the way down, and it ripples down to the smaller businesses.
Yeah. So the government seems to think that the biggest expenditure would be salaries, and therefore they've tried to stem that with their furlough. And then from a rent perspective, you can go and negotiate rent. And so they're expecting that if your establishment cost, rent, is covered and your salaries are covered, everything else would be flowing from sales, so variable cost. And therefore, they have a way of staving off problems for 3 months. And if they need to extend it, they'll extend it.
But you see, that depends on if your landlord decides to play ball, then to somehow give you delay the rent.
Yeah, but they even if they said no, they're in a situation where their place is not rented, they're not getting any income, same way. So I think most landlords will negotiate and play ball a little bit. I mean,
for some sort of delay.
Yeah, some sort of delay. And even if you are actually in a deep problems, then there is some councils, you can talk to them and so on. So everyone is pulling in the right direction in order to get you through this time. But if you were weak before, as I said, if your cash flow is bad, working capitals are bad, then the writing is on the wall a little bit.
But we're talking about, when you say weak, we're also talking about the guys who just started, the guys who probably in the past 9 to 12 months just start their businesses, just set up. They would have been taking a massive hit.
Yeah. So with all this schemes from the government, there are certain people who just fall out of it. Even if you haven't just started, but your net profit was more than £50,000, you also fall out of this gap, out of this bracket. So if you just started, then you don't have the track record. You're not employed. You're self-employed, but you fall out of that. The government tells you they're only trying to get 95% of people in this. So the other 5%, they just shrug their shoulders. Nothing they can do.
They can't help you.
They can't help you.
So they're allowing you to go to the wall then?
Yes.
So they're allowing the business to go to the wall.
They're saying, actually, we really can't help you. I mean, the only solution for you is if is universal credit. You sign on, you get £94, £25 a week, and then that's it.
Well, I heard a businessman, and he was talking about this, and he was saying that despite all the government help that they were getting, because the revenue was never going to come back, he's lost the income. It's never going to come back. So no matter what you're offering him, even with the help of the salaries, he's saying that he can't recover the ground that he's losing at all.
Well, I guess if the income isn't there, so he's not making those sales, he's not incurring those cost of sales, and his overheads for salaries are covered and rent to a certain extent, then he wants to make the profit that he had before, and so
Correct.
his wealth is reducing, but that's a small price to pay. He's surviving. There are some people who can't survive at all in this time,
but he's thinking, but he's also thinking, why should I have staff sitting at home not working to then go and pay 20%, and the income's not coming in at all? It's not going to come in. Why don't just let it go?
Income's not coming in, and I understand the furlough is only 80% of the salary today, to a maximum of £2,500. You're not paying staff for sitting at home doing nothing. You're paying,
but they can't work.
I know, but you're giving them a signal that says, actually, we value what you do. We have had reserves saving up over the period of time. This is our little contribution as an entrepreneur over what's happening, and this is how we support you. But even if you didn't do that and just give them the 80%, they'll appreciate that as well.
I know, but what if they'd allowed them to work from home? Then they were at home, and they allowed them to carry out some work, and the government was paying 80% of the salary, but they were still working. Wouldn't that have made sense?
You have to see it from sometimes from the government perspective, where they're saying, you're going to close these people, you're going to make them redundant because your business has ceased. And instead of giving them a redundancy pay, we're giving them, we're telling you, keep them on because your business is going to come back up. And we are going to finance them for 3 months. So they don't really need to work because you said you don't need them. This is instead of redundancy, the government is paying them,
But instead of redundancy, if I'd hang in there and I'm doing a bit of work just to keep the business afloat, just to keep something, with helping the boss keep what's left afloat for the next 3 months until it revives, that would have made sense.
Is the roles that get made redundant. So if you're saying that I don't want this person's role anymore, and I'm making the role redundant, not the person, and then the government is saying, okay, keep the roles going, and we'll pay, but because you made a redundancy pay, this is our method of saying, actually, we'll support these people. I can't justify the government saying, actually, for employed you can work, but for self-employed you can't. It'd be nice if people could work in both cases, but they don't want to give money for you saying that your company is going to be disrupted, and it's not. So this is partly their way of policing the thing.
Okay, all right. So they believe that if they did allow everybody to work, if they were too loose, people would abuse the system. That's what you're saying.
Yes.
Okay.
People would abuse it. Yes.
Okay. So run us through what's available then. Yeah. Run us through what's available. What's available in the business interruptions.
All right. So if you're a self-employed person, then there's universal credit. You apply to universal credit, you get £94.25 per week. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you're self-employed, the government has also given you to the maximum of £2,500.
Yeah, 2,000,
£2,500 per month. A bit like what's in the self-employed, the employed one, based on the average of your profits over the last 3 years. Yeah.
If there's any profits.
If there's any profits, I know. So therefore, if there is no profits, what we are finding is people are now considering whether or not they should amend their tax return to reflect profit. But
What do you mean amend the tax return? It's already been filed.
So
The
it's
past 3
wild,
years.
but I'm getting lots of people asking, what if we amend the tax returns, and so far when you look at the numbers, it doesn't make sense either. So that those are people who with no profits falling out the system right away as well.
Because most businesses, when you start, the first 2 or 3 years, is you're building the momentum, you're building the picture. So you're not going to make a lot of money in those first 3 years.
Yeah, you're not making lots of money, and here is the issue: this is on your profits, not your revenue, because everyone has revenues, but no,
Mm,
lots of people have losses.
yeah.
So you're I guess the government is saying if you're able to survive in a year when you're making a loss, they don't need to support you. You just consider this as another loss making period of time as well.
All right. Yeah, that's a bit steep, man. Wow, that is steep. So the only alternative for you then is to go and get universal credit.
Yes. So now if your business is interrupted, then they have this interruption loan scheme. The business interruption loan scheme is uh, hard to get into because one person was sharing with me that one of the big banks says of all the products they've ever set out, this is the highest demand that they've ever had. And when they started the scheme, the banks were tasked with making sure that somebody who approached them um, didn't have the eligibility for something else before they start this loan scheme. And then only after they fail that, then the bank will then give them the loan scheme. Now they're saying, actually, we can give it to everybody. But if you're going for a business interruption loan, then the first thing your business has to be interrupted. What do we mean by that? You have to assume that this thing is going to happen. The coronavirus is going to wipe out your income for the next 6 months. Then once we've decided it's interrupted, then you have to have a business plan. Then show what the impact of the business on the business is. And this impact might mean show them the last management accounts, give them the annual accounts, and so on. And then after that, provided them information about any loans and hire purchases you have before you can even start getting the application in. And then once you get the application in, then before you can get it. In fact,
But this is no different when you're going to them for the ordinary loans.
That's right. Well, I don't know
you were able to get them in the first place. Sorry?
I don't know anyone who've accessed it yet. I mean, I know
Wow.
people trying to get it, but they haven't been successful in getting this thing, even though the government is saying, actually, we are giving people business interruption loans. So
Wow.
it's there on paper.
But it's not flowing through.
Yeah, it's not flowing through. The government helps in other ways too. So you're self-employed, you're VAT registered. They're saying actually you don't have to pay us VAT.
Yeah, you can delay the payments
for the next 3 months. But delaying the payment means going and stopping the direct debit. Yeah.
Yes, telling the bank not to pay. The revenue has a way of taking the money even though it's not there. Yeah.
There's other stuff too. The government is giving you a 10%, a £10,000 or £15,000 if you're a retail business and it was interrupted. But you also have to make sure that if you have a property on the high street, you go and tell the council, actually, something. I believe I'm a retail business and I should get this grant. Because if you don't actively go and talk to the council, make sure you're on this list, then you won't get the grant.
So the local authority won't automatically contact you because you're on the high street? No?
They will, but there are lots of people on the high street who the local authority don't know about. You're not on any list.
Okay.
So you have to make sure you're on the list.
Okay.
I mean, I know retail businesses who is not on the local authority list, and so if I were you, I would go and check, make sure that I'm not paying any business rates because I got business rates relief, but I'm on this list because
Right.
I don't want to see. You know what will happen in the next, I don't know, 5 years, 4 years, you're going to have things like saying, actually, high lots of litigation. I didn't get what I deserve. COVID-19 hit, and you're going to get the hard luck stories. But why don't we act now and make
Right.
sure those hard luck stories don't come?
Mitigate them, so to
Yeah,
speak.
mitigate them because now is the time to act. And there's a lot of information, but the information is available. Lots of people willing to share this information with you. If you make sure that if you're entitled to grants from the government, you go and get it. If you make sure that you should universal credit, there's nothing saying that you apply for universal credit where you can't get the other self-employed bit. You can. So make sure you get everything you're entitled to, so that we get rid of the hard luck stories.
So the other thing about when the government had the thing about statutory sick pay, that was a bit when they said that you can claim you were off work and you can claim statutory sick pay. What's the process for collecting that money back from the government?
The government, well, we haven't seen anyone who was being able to collect anything from the government yet. So if you were furloughed, then the idea is that there would be a portal, and then you would collect it through the portal. This just happened 2 weeks ago, so that cycle of things going through hasn't started yet. If you are self-employed, the payment will only happen in June.
Wow.
It's
In
not
June.
happening in June, so it's not happening yet.
So for the next 3 months, you have to survive.
Yes, and the furlough employees, the employers have to have enough money in the bank to pay their employees and then claim it back from the government. So it's not a guarantee that people would be able to have that funding to pay their employees for the period of time.
So if in February they were working hand to mouth in February, come March and April, and it's going to be no different, isn't it?
That's right. They don't have any money to pay.
One situation I came across was I heard this young lady making a statement that she had left her job and started a new job. And when she started a new job in March, because she wasn't on their payroll at the time, from the date that the government said, she was unable to be furloughed.
Yes,
in the new company.
In a new company, and I've seen that too. I know somebody is in between jobs, and they fall out of the old company and hasn't got a new job, and therefore fall out the system, and their only redress is universal credit. I mean, it's hard, but
so so even if you left the old company, you can't go back and say, all right, okay, because I was with you at that time, just hold me in your books until it passes.
All right. So holding them in your books, or anybody in your books, means that you're going to finance their salary until the government gives you back your money.
Yeah, that's the hardest part, isn't it?
That's right. So
it's funding the payments until the government decides to pay up.
And somebody is left, so there's no long-term situation commitment with you and that person, no commitment no more. And I'd love to think that people would do it, but I'm not so sure.
Well, I was listening to a coach recently, and this lady was saying, she was saying to people, do what you have to do to keep the business afloat.
Yes.
She said, do everything possible. Do everything. Don't stop working. Don't furlough the staff. Just hang in there and keep everything going for as long as you can.
Yeah, but if you're not a key worker, the government is saying you should stay home. What happened if your business can't be conducted from home?
Okay, well, yeah, unless you're in the retail trade, but yeah.
Yeah. So, but if your business can be conducted from home, then continue to do what the best you can. I'm saying to people, if the government says we will defer the VAT, and you can afford to pay the VAT, then I would pay the VAT, because deferral means you're going to have to pay it at some point in time.
Repeat that again for me, because you're saying if the government says defer the VAT, don't pay it, yes. But you're saying if they have the money to pay, they should pay it?
Yes.
The government says don't pay it. Delay it.
Don't pay
Keep
it
the money
now.
in your bank account for the next 3 months.
Don't pay it now, but you're eventually gonna have to pay it.
Eventually. But if I
Yeah.
don't have to pay it, no. Why should I pop the money out just yet?
Yeah, I mean, you were gonna build up. So you defer your VAT, you defer your landlord rent, and so on. Then by the time everything comes back out, you are again going to say, well, we have to then start to finance this in a different way, and you're building up situations that if you really can handle now, why
Okay,
defer it?
I know you're building up a liability, yes, but
Yes.
because you said earlier that we think you're thinking about 8 to 12 months before this thing's really clear itself, yeah.
Yes.
So all I'm trying to do is keep some money in the bank just for the emergency, just to keep me flowing, and then once I come out, then I can address all the other issues. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, I agree. Yeah, but there are some businesses who really don't need to defer. It's
Right.
like your friend saying, keep your business going as best you possibly can, and then only do things when it's absolutely necessary. It's a bit like if you're going for a business interruption loan, the very first thing you have to do is to state that your business has been interrupted. So if you were in some business that, I don't know, a supply chain for the NHS, then you're in the supply chain for NHS, and your business is booming. Why are you deferring VAT? If you're 3M and you're selling mask, your business is better than ever.
Yes. Okay. You're selling masks. All right. Okay. But have you not seen where a lot of the bigger companies now have switched to start producing? What's it now? What's the upper? What's the
Ventilators.
ventilators?
Yeah.
Yes. That's a
Yeah.
massive switch.
It's a massive switch, and there's nothing wrong with that. They're flexible and so forth, and that's the best way that they can utilize their resources now. Once the virus is finished, then probably they switch back. They might find that they make more money making ventilators than they did when
Well,
they were making their other business.
but those factories should have been closed down already. From the time when the government said shut down and only the essential workers should have been working, those factories would have been closed down from those times.
No, they become essential workers.
Okay, by virtue of switching the trade,
That's right.
they become essential
They
workers.
become essential workers, and so
Wow.
therefore it doesn't apply to them anymore.
Wow.
But it's there are gonna be opportunities in this time. There is always this argument that says you shouldn't waste a good crisis. Now, when you're doing business, you have to be agile and be able to take decisions based on where the current situation is. So I'm not saying that you shouldn't um, continue to be entrepreneurial and use your business skills and so on. Um, you must be empathic to what's going on, uh, you know, but 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 that doesn't mean that you stop thinking and trying to do the best for yourself and your business.
So seize
And
the opportunity then.
yes, I mean, there's a row where one MP is saying this is the time to buy shares, and I've seen it, and I have to laugh because it's only that he's brave to say it. There are some people who is not brave enough to say it, but that they're thinking it.
But if you watch some of the news this week, some of the stock markets have started to revive across the world. Yeah.
Yes, because speculation, people are buying shares thinking that this is the biggest discount they've ever had for decades, and so they're taking this discount, and then once you start speculating in the markets, it's going to rise. So that's what's happening. Um, it's an opportunity in some extent.
So you've been furlonged at home. You're not working in the current job that you should be working in. You're furlonged at home. What do you recommend they should be doing at home?
I'd use my time to do the things that I've always wanted to do, but never had a chance to.
Well, the gardening.
No. If not necessarily gardening. If that's what you wanted to do, then fine.
Okay.
But I, me personally, I love personal development. So,
Right.
learn a new skill, learn a new enhance what you're currently doing, start a business. I mean, I know someone who's in
Wow.
Ford
You're
and
saying start a business right now.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, start a business. You're going to look at something that was is going to collapse, and you're thinking, okay, I can do that better than they were doing. This has transformed the way people do business. You and I having a conversation over electronics. If you were Zoom, you'd be laughing all the way to the bank.
Now imagine that. Imagine that if we had created our own Zoom 10 years
Yeah.
ago, 5 years ago, and it was just meandering along in the background until suddenly something like this happens.
And they become king. So yeah, and in fact, this is non-stop because apart from Zooms, there's other industries that are coming up. I wouldn't when someone says you were going to work from home in the future, there used to be people who were skeptical, thinking, "Can you work from home?" Now, people are going to ask, "Do we really need an office?" That's going to be
Well,
the
that's true.
question.
There is no longer the need for that office. Well, business companies are going to realize if they've had staff working at home for such a long period of time, that it's time they can start shedding some of the space that they're paying for.
Yeah, so you have a hot desk, you schedule it if you have a meeting, and then everyone stays at home. Because we're going to develop skills that says, how do we manage teams that are not physically in the same space, and that would work. So I can see a future where there'd be less and less office.
Wow.
Start
And you know there's software you can now buy and download on the staff's PC, and you can monitor what they're doing throughout the day. You realize that?
Yeah, if you have to do that, you have the wrong staff.
Okay. So the banks are the ones who are managing the whole process for the business interruption loans. These are the major high street banks.
Yeah, they're the expert.
They're the experts.
Yeah,
They're the only ones
for
dealing with it.
issuing loans. Yes, so they are the ones that are managing it. I mean, I hear one argument saying in 2008, the people bailed out the banks, and now is the time the banks should bail out the people. But it's not quite happening like that. The business interruption loans is not being issued as fast as the people needed it, because
Process
as we
is
say,
too long.
yeah, it's too slow, much too slow. And there's nothing to do to increase the process. If you try to contact your bank now, depending on which bank, you probably won't get through. In fact, what I've been doing is recommending loan brokerage firms who is used to contacting banks and asking them to look at loans for SMEs. So if you go through a loan brokerage firm, sometimes they get access quicker, even to your own bank, and because they do thousands and thousands of loan.
It's not a higher cost. It's not come at a premium. No.
No, these furlough loans doesn't give the brokerage firm any money for finding you the loan. The government made sure that they're not paying on anything like that. Now, we're not saying that there won't be a cost, but not as it was before.
But then it's not in their interest for you to refer you to the furlough to the business interruption loans initially, like what you were saying earlier. It's try to get one of their products first, and only if you fail their products, then they refer you to the other one.
Yeah, what we're trying to do though is access. At the moment, you can't get in to start talking about any loan.
Just a conversation.
Just a conversation. And because you don't have access, you have to find any which way to get through the door. And that's what we're finding. By the time this thing is finished, even though with all these facilities in place, business is going to go bust not getting access to these facilities.
Wow. So what do you recommend people should be doing then? They should be getting on the phones. They should be. What should they be doing to just to make sure this doesn't happen?
So they must have a conversation with their own bank That's one. They must have a realistic cash flow to tell themselves what their burn rate is, what how much money they really need, considering the furlough and whatever expenditure they have. I mean, people has other standing orders and direct debits. They must go to these other standing orders and direct debits and have a realistic discussion saying, actually, this is the total cash I have. This is um, what my expectation is. If the government is going to finance 80% of my salaries, then that's the time period I'm thinking of. Um, they have to be realistic. If you don't have any income and your expenditure is XYZ, go and talk to the people who you have the expenditure with and have a realistic discussion and saying, this is what's happening. Y- There was the government is saying that in this period of time, there's no illegal trading, because once upon a time you'd look at it as a director and said this business is bankrupt, and so
Mm.
therefore you shouldn't trade. And I said, actually, for the purposes of furlough, we're not saying you're bankrupt. You're allowed to do these things. Have a realistic conversation with your accountant and decide if you really should. How do you get through this?
The difficulty you have, though, in putting the business plans together and forecasting what's going to happen, forecasting because everything's been interrupted so much, how do you actually forecast the income for the next 12 months?
I gave an hint. You have to assume that the interruption is
It's a
six
zero.
months, 6 months long, and your income is zero.
Yeah.
And then if your income is zero for the first 6 months, and then starts to go back up, I don't know, 40% of where it was in the following period of time, then you then have zero income with some expenses, and um, then it's going to be up developing over a period of time back to where you were, because you still have the know-how, you still have the skill set, you still have the debtors books or order books, you still have need for your product. Nobody else, you're
You
it's only like it's frozen for a little bit of time, but it doesn't mean it won't come back.
think the demand is still there, but I heard EasyJet say this morning that they've got enough money to survive until about August, and the only way they could survive is unless they cancel an order they had for planes. They had an order for planes going through.
Hmm.
I needed to cancel it in order to just to survive. So
Yeah.
you got to do what you got to do. What you got to do.
Yeah, you just got to do what you got to do, and we're talking about a special case, the aviation industry, um, and I think they are special. It's not the normal business. It just we were doing it for ledger anyway, and when crisis happens, you have to start thinking about survival rather than ledger. Um, so if businesses are starting to come back on stream and you have to travel from A to B because of business, then EasyJet things will come on back on stream. But with teams connecting with Zoom and across the world, they're starting to think that this is post COVID-19 would look completely different
Yeah.
to pre-COVID-19.
Yes. No. It'd be a total change.
Yeah, big,
It'd be
big
a
change.
total change in the way we work, the way we do things.
Yes.
So my only reservation here is not to assume 6 months, but to assume 12 months.
Okay. All right.
Worst case scenario.
12 months.
Worst case scenario. Huh?
Yeah, but because we're going to go to the bank asking them for interruption. 12 months. I mean, 6 or 12 months is details.
Well, I know. Okay, it's details, but
Details.
it's a big difference. So okay, so we're coming up to the end of the program now. So what are you able to do for people out there yourself in as a business consultant, as an accountant? What are you able to do to help?
So we would act in a similar way to the way we act in the past, in terms of if a business come to us, we would look at their current situation, health check to see whether or not they know what's happening. Profitability of a different products, utilization of their assets. Do they have too much inventory? That sort of stuff. Working capital, and then from that assessment, then decide on the best way to leverage what they've got. So maybe they might be non-profitable in some places, but profitable in the other places. So they would use resources where they're profitable. Maybe they only need to bookkeeping or anything that makes sure they're streamlined and have reports. Maybe they need cash flow statements, they need business plans, whatever their requirements are, we will then deal with it based on the initial assessment.
Okay, so you have to carry an assessment. So where can people find you?
Yes, we are Winters Consulting, www.wintersconsulting.com.
Okay, I'll put it up for you. So hey,
brilliant, thank you.
Orville, thank you so much for coming on the program and talking. You know, it's a very sad situation. It's a very sad time.
Yes.
We can't ignore the amount of people that have lost their lives.
No,
families who've suffered because of this.
Yes.
And you know, as you said, post COVID-19 is going to be so different to pre-COVID-19. And 90% of that will be people living with the losses of their loved ones that they'll never see again. And for somehow they've been unable to grieve the way they wanted to grieve normally. So it's very heart-rending what's going on, what's happening. But at the same time, we have to hold hands together to get through this, making sure that we survive, making sure that the will to survive is still there, the will to survive, the will to push through, the will to make it happen. So I want to thank you for coming on side the program. And is there a last word that you want to give? What's the final word that you'd like to give to say, hey guys, what is it? What is it?
Guys,
I know you're an accountant, so inspire these guys out, inspire them now, inspire them.
Be in the present, meaning I don't want the hard luck story, 6 months down the road, 5 years down the road saying, we didn't get this, we didn't get that. Look at what is out there and make sure you're part of that. Be in the present. I know it's hard because you're thinking my business is crashed and so forth, but there are support for those businesses. Go and seek it out and make sure you're there.
Hey, be in the present. Man, you're giving a word here now. Be in the present. Be in the present. Ladies and gentlemen, be in the present. Orville Plummer, thank you so much from Winters Consulting, helping us here just to walk through what's available. You need to get on the phone. You need to get on the website. You need to contact your accountant. You need to contact your banks. You've got to do something. You can't just think it's going to happen for you. So I'm going to close out now with the closing word from the sponsor.
You are listening to the Message Talk Show and Podcast. Do you believe you have something to share? Do you believe you have something to contribute? Do you have a story to tell the world, to share with your community? Gandhi said, man often becomes what he believes himself to be. If you think you can, you can. If you think you can't, you can't. So join us on the Message Talk Show and Podcast with host Alex Gordon.